Welcome everyone. I'm having this episode not in a cubicle, but in direct from Prague. You wonder what I'm doing in Prague, but we'll talk about that very soon. But I traveled this morning by bus from Berlin to Prague to come and meet Oscar Carbonell in the office of Rossum. You wonder what is Rossum, what is this game company and why are we here? But that's what we will start with before we begin. So this episode is special because no, I'm not interviewing a game leader, although that person has worked before in games. And why is it special? It's because today we are fully focusing on our people leadership and especially coaching, which is a very misunderstood concept, word, a lot of resistance in games, and so I want to bring more education and awareness about the topic. So before we start, well, welcome, or thank you for welcoming me, Oscar, in your office at Rossum in Prague. And before we start, do you mind to give a quick intro about yourself, what you've been doing before? We can come back to the times where you've been in games, but yeah, what do you do today?
Of course. I would say that, I am a strategic person that has evolved into a systemic person. What does it mean? That in my whole career I have been working on strategy, building strategies for businesses, for some time in gaming in this case, and acting even as a product manager in two different gaming companies. And during this process of working a lot in strategy, I have realized the importance of thinking more about the whole system, not just the strategy. Mm-hmm. Why the whole system? Because in the system you have different levels that play together. And I have learned the importance of playing all of them at the same time and making sure that they bring us to success. Mm-hmm. While strategy by itself is nothing that you can implement if you don't have the right people, the right culture, and the right systems.
I couldn't have put it in better words. I think I have also came to that realization and development over my career, while focusing a lot on the tactical things, and over time really thinking about an organization as a system, a team as a system, and to an extent we could even say a whole individual as a system. And what is it that you do today? You've worked before long time maybe ago at Gameloft and Social Point, so that's also how we connected through the network. But today, what do you do? What's your role if you...
It was like 6 years ago, more or less. I worked 2 years at Social Point and 1 year at Gameloft. And at Social Point, I entered to do strategic analysis and consulting, and then I moved into product. I was the product manager in the Facebook games, and later on the live ops managers in Dragon City. And after 2 amazing years, intense years also in this case, I decided to move to Gameloft to a much more global position, and I was traveling all around the world to different studios that Gameloft had, trying to help teams to be much more customer-centric, understand better the product, and build the right strategies. With that, my mobile experience finished, and I moved into software as a service, SaaS, and it's where I work at Typeform. That it's a company that what it does is to collect data through amazing experiences. In this case, I was there for 4 years as a strategy leader, and then I became chief of staff. Chief of staff is a position that can have multiple definitions, and everybody has their own definition. In this case, how I define it is making sure that the leadership team works effectively and brings to the organization what the organization requires. That's how I define the role of a chief of staff. In the end, it's getting things done through people, and I acted like that in Typeform, and that's when I moved into Rossum. And at Rossum, I have been also working as chief of staff, and adding an element that for me is really important, and I have realized that it's critical, that is the element of organizational development. Making sure that the organization has clear expectations, clear culture, and clear actions that help us to move from point A to point B. Because sometimes we tell people you have to go from point A to point B, but we don't help them in the transition to go from one point to the other.
Mm-hmm. Also very well verbalized, because yes, I have experience in organization, chiefs of staff, where it wasn't always clear what was the role. And with the way you describe it, so first of all, are you sitting in the C-suite with the rest of the executive team? So very important point, because again, I've seen in my career as well, roles, sometimes we call them head of people, it could be a head of HR, general manager, having those roles in executing the vision or aligning all the elements of the organization to go forward and deliver the outcomes. but those are not at the executive level, and they are also limited by that. So this is very important that you are sitting in the C-suite, as important as the rest of the executive team. And also, it's not a common role in games. I don't know if it's something that you've had as an observation. The chief of staff is not very common, I found, in game companies. Maybe we're too small as well for this.
Well, I would say like even if you are too small, a chief of staff is always relevant. And in the end, depends on the type of leader that you have. In the end, the founder or the CEO, like we have multiple different type of roles and perspectives. And I think that the chief of staff always can help when you want to be really intentional about the team dynamics and about how you bring things to life. Then if you want to be really intentional there, a chief of staff is super useful. And in the end, you should create your own definition. The important thing is that chief of staff is somebody that needs to help you get the right things done. And I add there my own perspective that leading people, leading teams, and leading culture are critical elements that I think that you need to bring into the equation. Because if not, you're not going to be successful. That's why when I define my own chief of staff position, I bring them into the definition. The big difference between a COO and a chief of staff is like the chief of staff usually don't have people reporting to him, her, and the COO usually has departments reporting to them. And that's a big difference. In the end, both want to make the same thing, make the company more effective. That's why, like sometimes anything in gaming is more common to have a COO.
Yes.
Multiple times the CEO ends doing that. But what happens? If you have a CEO focusing on if the things are getting executed or not, and in making sure that the leadership team work as a team and individuals have the development that they need, then the CEO focus gets defocus.
Yes.
And that means that the CEO cannot do properly their job. And we know that being a CEO is a really lonely work. It's like a lonely wolf in the middle of nowhere. And having next to you a chief of staff, somebody that understands you, supports you, is an advisor, and helps you to get things done, usually gives CEOs the time, the perspective to get things done in a better way and to focus on what they think that is critical.
You're enlightening me as well on the definition of a chief of staff, because in games it's not very common to even think of this role. And often as well, as we are maturing as an industry, there's so much we can learn from other industries that are a bit more mature, bigger, more stable. In games it's been a bit of a roller coaster, as you said, intensive years. So that's very good to think of it. I think this is also what leads us to this conversation today about coaching, because to me what you do is what, for example, an internal coach can do when you're not really working for a company, but all your skills that you have developed over the years, because you also train on the side. Is that correct from my understanding, that as well there's a lot of coaching skills that you have to deploy with this role, people communication, especially coaching skills in the organization?
Absolutely. I think, in the end, this is a skill that I learned and developed a lot when I was a product manager. Because a product manager, many times what happens is you don't have people reporting to you, but you are leading large teams of people that they have they report to other people, or the reporting lines. That means that you need to make sure that you engage them, you bring into the game in a way that they really want to be part of it. And when you're working at chief of staff, in the end is the same. You have a group of people that they have more power than you. They are C-levels, executives, and you are somebody that is helping them. And you need to become a key role that is able to ask them to do things at the same time that you provide them value. And you help them develop and understand what they cannot see. Then coaching in the end is nothing more than help people build awareness about the things that they already know, but they cannot see.
I'm also training myself around coaching, and I think a key element that you highlighted is really about the awareness, bringing to light, making the team or the executive team see what they cannot see, but also towards an outcome. So that's quite interesting as well to hear in those words. So let's begin with why we're here today and how we connected with this conversation. And I want to give special kudos to Marina, who connected us, Yeremenko. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here today. As I'm going through my journey in bringing more awareness, coaching, leadership in games, a quote that stayed really with me, and I read it after in some books: becoming a leader is becoming yourself. I wanted to start with the basic of becoming yourself. It sounds so simple and easy, but why is it not that easy? And what does that even mean to become yourself?
In this case, like is easy as difficult at the same time, because it means that you are the door and the blocker to your own development. I think that's important that we remember, we are the door and the blocker to everything that we do, always. There is like the coactive school that speaks about that leadership has two key components. Leadership is about being responsible and being response-able. What does it mean that anybody can be a leader? It's about taking responsibility about something. And to take responsibility about something, it's important that you are able to take the responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not capable of taking the responsibility, then you have a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Then in the end, when we speak about leadership, is you're not able to be responsible of yourself, and you're not able to understand yourself, understand what drives you, what motivates you, what brings you ahead, what blocks you, how can you be able to take responsibility of others? Mm-hmm. It's really difficult, because in the end, multiple times, what happened next to us is not something that happens because of them. It's something that happens because of us, because we have this impact into the people that is around us. I always say that when I interact with people and something happens, something that I may not be expecting or I may not like, how much of what's happening is because of the other person, how much is because of me. And multiple times, when you think about it deeply, you realize that large part of it is because of you. Because you bring into the equation all your fears, or your limiting beliefs, or your traumas, all these things that don't allow you to be yourself. Mm-hmm. Then to be able to take responsibility of the world, first, you need to take responsibility of yourself.
Mm. That's a very deep and profound definition of leadership, which is very misunderstood in some younger fields again. Because today, even I have people asking me, what is mixing even management and leadership? But what you're talking about is a really profound, it's a role you take, and which requires not only responsibility, as you mentioned, but a level of self-awareness that is quite rare to find, because I've worked a lot with teams and people, and I've seen at play so many times those blockers, whether it's at executive teams or leading teams. So I wanted to ask, what gets in the way for anyone, even before coming to the place of leadership, to have access to that level of self-awareness, to know what drives you, what are your blockers, what are your limiting beliefs?
I was in a coaching course some weeks ago, and they explained me a story that I found super interesting. Imagine that you are a kid, that you have to go walking home, from your home to the school, and you have to cross the middle of the city. And one day you go crossing, you are super happy, you are going to school. In this case you like it, in some others not, but in this case you like it. And then when you are going to cross one of the streets, there is a dog inside of a house that is barking at you. And you get scared. Mm-hmm. Then that day, you go through that point, but you will remember forever that in that street, there is a dog there. That the next day, you decide that instead of taking that street, you would be taking the street next to it, because you don't want the dog to bark you, because then you are scared. Then you're trying to avoid being scared. And since that day onwards, you never take back to the street. Now imagine that 1 month after, in your new route, in another street, something similar happens. Maybe it's a dog, maybe it's a cat, maybe it's whatever. And then you decide, yes, I have fear. I don't want to go again through the street because I will have fear again. And I want to avoid that. In our lives, this happens continuously. We have thousands of experiences that conditions our behavior. And many times we decide, no, I'm not going to walk anymore through this street, because I don't like this feeling, because I don't want that happening to me. And that makes a point, or creates a situation where you don't decide where you go. Your past choices are the ones who are deciding what you do and what you don't do. Because in the end, there is 90% of the city that you cannot walk around because you don't like what happened there.
Yeah.
And that limits and conditions drastically what you can do. Then we're speaking about leaders that and founders, many of them, that have been really successful in their career to get where they are. And through this success, they have many experiences and situations where they have decided, no, I am not taking this path. And then they get to a position of responsibility, and all these past fears and limitations condition how they lead and how they act. It is said by a theory from the leadership circle company that there are 3 big fears that we humans have. And when we listen to them, we act in a way that is called reactive way. It's like when an animal attacks you, you act instinctively, you react. And reaction is based on fear. It's your instinct that tries to protect you. And these 3 ones are the following ones. The first one is the fear of being alone, the fear of being left aside. This is the fear that overall humans we have because we are social animals. We want to be with others. What happens when leaders have this fear? That they are conservative, they don't speak up, they try to make the whole team happy, they are not able to take decisions, they are pretty passive. They act as is called complying with others. Then we have the second fear, that is the fear of not being enough. I am not enough. When leaders act from this fear, what happens is they become aggressive and hypercritical to show that, yeah, I really matter, I can really be here, or they become super distant. It's like they don't know what they do, but it's better they hide because they don't want to show them that I am not enough. And this is what's called protecting. Leaders protect themselves, and they can protect in attack or in defense. And the third one is the fear of not being able to make it, not being able to do something. I am not capable or able to do it. What happens here is that then we become hyper-perfectionist, hyper-driven. You try to control everything. Micromanagement is in this area. No, we need to control that, even the small detail. Why? Because it needs to be perfect. Because if not, I may not be able to make it. We become arrogant, ambitious, autocratic. This is what's called the controlling. Your controlling self. The one that tries to make sure that this happens because you have the fear that it's not going to happen. Many leaders are driven by these fears instead of being driven by who they are and what they actually want to achieve.
Oh, pretty deep. And to summarize, so it's really good to have structure. And this is where I see the system thinking. I'm also like, it fits my brain just listening to you. Fear of being alone, isolated. This is the fear of dying just by yourself without belonging to a group. The fear of not being enough. And the last fear is the fear of, can I make it or not? Like competence, I don't know if it's like competence or achievement, something around it. I'm reflecting on this because, well, I have seen, of course, it at play with many people I work with, teams I've tried to help. I'll focus here more on my own experience as well, where I have been taking quite many leadership roles in my career, even like self-leadership, and I can recognize and relate to some of them. Like the fear of not being enough is very strong in me, and I must say I can feel it when it has happened. And back to the self-awareness, sometimes I've acted trying to, I would say, not put myself out there or not trying to be present, come with an initiative because there's the fear of not being enough, or it's overdoing it because I had to prove that I am enough. And I have seen as well the consequences of it when at some point a pulse that I'm thankful I had during my career is always the pulse of a team. Like back to what you said, when you have also a response, a feedback for a team who's kind enough to stay with you and say, okay, we're feeling stressed, we're not happy with this. This is more of a signal of your own leadership style and what you're doing, and because the team is more of a signal of a pulse of yourself. And those moments, especially when I was building a new studio, I could see that drive for me, which I was not aware that it was led by fear of proving that I was enough. I could make it. I could prove that I can build a studio, a team, and launch a product. And I felt like I just hit a wall at some point. It was during COVID, actually, where I needed help. I actually consulted to get a coach and also had therapy to really understand what was happening, because I could see along the road with the first signals of a team that was also feeling what I felt. if I keep doing this, I will really have negative impact on people, first of all, which is something dear to my heart. When I quit, I should not take that role. And second is even the outcome I try to achieve is not happening. So it's also resonate very true to me, what you just shared.
You know, like speaking about that, there is one book that I would recommend everybody to read that is called The Anatomy of Peace and connects with all these fears. And what this book says is that when you are acting from one of these fears, what happens is like you enter in conflict with yourself. And as you enter in conflict with yourself, because you're trying to prove yourself and you are trying to prove that what you are doing is the right thing, when you already know that it's not the right thing. And by having this fear and this reaction, entering in conflict with yourself, to justify yourself, you begin to see the others not like humans, but like objects. Many times happens that leaders look at their team, is like, yeah, my team, they don't work. All these employees, bad people, you know, or like we can begin to create stereotypes, boxes, because it's easier to hate, dislike, justify against an object than against a human that has its own needs, desires, push. It's much more difficult. And that's why, you know, like when we enter in conflict with ourselves, we begin to even be more reactive. Then the only way of making sure that we are less reactive is by becoming more ourselves, solving our own conflict, becoming in peace with ourselves.
Yeah, and that covers many other things
Correct.
that are behind, like around healing traumas, understanding where the fears are coming from, because back to the school story, which I found a beautiful metaphor, it starts from when you're young, so how many times did you try to go somewhere, and many paths, and so it's just a backlog, a depth, as we say in games, like technical depth, it's a psychological, emotional depth. And when you start to do a bit of a cleanup and you're aware, you wake up like, oh my God, there's a lot of work to do. But before we get there for the tools of more self-awareness, I want also to create more acknowledgement and awareness on what, especially for roles that are so important of leaders, like once again, you are responsible for a group and not objects. Humans who have their own, purpose, needs, individuality, who are here for maybe slightly different reasons than you. It's such a big human responsibility. And when we look at why does it matter to first be a better leader with this role of responsibility, which means also knowing better yourself, but what is at stake? So I would like maybe to ask this question from two dimensions. One is like pure business outcome, because this is one probably which is many people in a tangible way, like you talked about effective organization, but maybe more deeper also in a personal way. What is at stake if you are not looking inward as a leader?
I think that here is really important to differentiate between correlation, causality, and reality in this sense. And we know that in gaming a lot. You can do an amazing game, beautiful game, amazing gameplay, amazing economy. You launch it and it's a fail. And you have a shitty game that you don't understand why and it's a success. That's why I think it's important that we make this connection also with leadership and leadership development. You can be a really successful and effective leader, and at the same time be a pain for yourself and for the others. Then there is a lot of studies that show that there is a correlation between being a creative leader, understood as being in your genius area, being yourself, acting with purpose, with intentionality, caring about others, at the same time that you have a strategic vision. This is highly correlated with leadership effectiveness, that is highly correlated with business outcomes. Then this is clear that these type of behaviors tend to lead there. And then I have many leaders that come to me and say, yeah, but my last boss was an asshole, and he got amazing results, and his effectiveness is super high. And then is when we go to, okay, who was paying the debt? Because there is always a debt. If somebody is not acting as they should, it always has a cost. Where is this cost? Is it in themselves or is it in others? Somebody is being drained here. And multiple times what happens is like leaders are draining their teams, are really exhausting their teams to get to results. What means that people get burned, or people leave for another company, or some of them become slaves of a way of working. and they are never free. And they just wait the whole week to arrive to the weekend. And at the same time that happens multiple times is the leader also is paying a debt in their personal life. They don't sleep, they are the whole day angry, they think that everybody is a bad person, that the world is against them. All these negative feelings that end destroying their positivity, their way of being, it creates a lot of frustration. I know leaders that are 50, 40, 60 years old and they cannot sleep because of that, because they have not dealt with their whole life experience. And they are living through this conflict with themselves. And that's terrible impact. And there is a key point here that we need to consider. Your team can leave you, but you cannot leave yourself. You will always be with yourself. Then in the end, in this case, your team is more free than yourself. Then until the day that you don't realize that you are in conflict with yourself and that you are the only one who has the power to change yourself, you are going to be in a terrible, sad situation. And that self-realization is not easy. Also because we live in a society where accepting that I am not perfect, that I don't have all the answers, is not easy. And that makes this situation really difficult. And in the end, the one who will pay the debt probably is going to be you. That's where coaching wants to help you to make sure that, hey, you're paying a debt. Be aware of that. Is that what you want to do? Yes or no? And we empower you to take the decision that you want.
Yeah, that's very powerful about the debt, and especially on yourself, because one that really resonated with me, you can't leave yourself. And I can see, having also coached more in a team setup, I have seen it as well, and I could feel it for myself, a level of shame, like with the darkest, deepest part of yourself, and looking away is not solving it, but it is with you in anything you do. So I think this is really the deeper work, where we don't always measure the depth and the cost of it, but eventually, and I've been reading also a lot about the body trauma from Gabor Mate, the body keeps the score. Like the lack of sleep, the stress that you carry in your body, it will translate in some physical way at some point later in your life. And at that point, it's not too late, but it's already a bit too late to act. So it's like getting also early. And why I'm doing the whole content on Rise and Play Leadership, to create awareness. It's preemptive medicine, You don't need to be at your deathbed, you start to act and maybe learn from the wisdom of a crowd and, many learnings that we have in this world.
And there's something important we need to remember there, that is for every negative thinking that we have, or thought that we have, we need 4 positive to compensate. That's the proportion, 1 to 4. And that's super, super important. Yeah. And there is another statistic that I love also, that is more or less around 66% of personal relationships that break is not because of something that happened in the relationship, but because of legacy problems that the people in the relationship were bringing into the relationship. Then, as you said, your legacy, all this negative thinking that you have been doing for years, is conditioning your way and your effectiveness of working with others.
Yeah, and it's so important to remember, because I've seen as well, back to those fears of criticism not being enough. It's a system that trickles down as well in you are not enough. I think I'm not enough, you are not enough. So I've seen as well a leadership style that is quite common, the tough leadership. Focus on what you should work on. But each time it's a little depth, in that negativity, when there's a whole theory around feedback, and it's like 1, 2, 5 or 4, like 1 negative for, and some people say, this is bullshit. Like, no, we just focus on, what to improve. But it has an emotional cost on the ones who are receiving, because it also lowers the self-esteem over time. It's like, that person is really thinking negatively of me. And at some point, like you said, it's more of accumulation of all that this is enough. I don't feel good being part of this relationship.
Something that for me, like, I have learned a lot during my career, is like, when I began my career and I had my managers, I always thought bad about them. It's like, oh, this is a bad person, what a so bad manager, like, why this person is doing that to me. It was a bit of a victimism mindset. And when I grow professionally and began to learn and develop in all these areas, I began to think completely different, much more from an empathetic standpoint. Because like, if this person is acting like that with me, how this person should be acting with themselves, you
Yes.
know? And when I began to think about it, like, what this person must be going through, how much this person must be suffering, you know,
Yeah.
because if he's acting or she's acting like that, it's because something is happening there. Something is not going well there.
Mm.
Then by changing the approach also about how this person affected me, it allowed me to be much more helpful to this person.
Yeah.
Because even if they could not treat me as a human, I was able to treat them as a human. And by doing that, you change the relationship.
Mm.
And they begin to see that you are not a threat.
Yeah.
You are part of the solution.
This is another feedback loop I've seen at play where you break the cycle. And it's true, and it's a good reminder, as I've been also in my post sometimes. I'm not perfect, but something that I try with strong discipline is every time I have a choice to give kindness or hate, I always choose kindness. And if I fail at doing that, I step away before I can do that again. And with that attitude, you don't always receive kindness, right? And in those moments, I find it challenging to not take it personally. What have I done to deserve this? And that victimization that you talked about. But looking at it with a lens of empathy, it's like you give what you have inside you, right? In some way. So it's telling more about the person, what they're giving to you, rather than you in the moment. And when you're able to be above that, in a way, like above the situation, this is where you can see the bigger picture, which is hard emotionally.
If you let me add into that, I think a super good point is that all humans, we think that everything is about us, that we're in the center of the world. This person must be thinking about me right now. This person must be doing that because of what they have done before. We tend to think that everything is about us. And I am sorry, I have bad news for all of us. It's not about us. We tend to think it's about us, but it's not about us. Multiple times it's about the others. And when it's about us, it's inside us, not in the room.
Yeah.
People is thinking about their own things. Then when we go into a conversation with a leader that is maybe not being an effective leader, and we think that this leader is doing that in purpose, is having bad intention, what we are trying to do is to put ourselves in the middle of the discussion. When in reality, we are not in the middle of the discussion, and many more things there. We are just one element.
Yeah.
Then by being able to leave our ego at home and bring our humanity, I think is when many more things are possible. And that's the way of living from your own identity, from who you actually are. And as we said, being a leader doesn't mean that you need to be top management, a CEO or a founder. Being a leader is taking responsibility of yourself and of your impact in the world. And we as employees, when we have a negative experience with somebody, we need to be leaders too. We need to take responsibility. How much it comes from us, how much comes from them, and how much from my empathy I can understand what's happening here.
Moving forward more towards solutions around coaching, or where you want to start to become yourself, access a bit more. We haven't talked much about it, the genius self, but there were so many things that you shared today, which are just some steps forward. I have found first a hurdle, especially coming from the gaming industry, where it's a young industry. Before, I think 10 years ago, no one was talking about leadership at all. Even when I started the podcast, it was the only one tackling the topic of leadership. So now, touching like coaching, which is a whole concept by itself, which is really not a role or, an official role in a company, but it's a way of being, first of all. And also it's about the impact with the others you work with or you're trying to help. What are the resistance you have seen to coaching from executives, whether it's been in games, if you have been a bit familiar with it, or even in general in business world?
I think let's just step back if you want. Let's speak about what's coaching first.
Yes.
Because it's something that everybody is a coach. Coaching is everything, and I think it's important that we clarify that first. Coaching is about helping you build awareness about things that you already know. Then coaching is nothing more than being around with you and through asking questions, helping you explore yourself. Open the doors that for you are not so easy to open, and hold the space so you can make it happen. Many people think that coaching is mentoring. I will tell you what to do. Or consulting, I will do a plan for you and you will implement. There is always this metaphor of fishing.
Yeah.
I will tell you how to fish. There is a consultant. A mentor will come to you fishing and will tell you, no, you are doing that wrong, you should do it in that way. A coach will come to you fishing, will be sitting next to you, and will be asking you, how do you feel fishing? What makes you fish? What pleasure do you get in fishing? It's about exploration, understanding what you are doing and why. That's a big difference. Then coaching is never prescriptive. If people go to coaching expecting to get answers from somebody else, that's not going to happen. Coaching is about finding your own answers. Because in the philosophy of coaching, of coactive coaching, we deeply believe that people are complete, creative, and full of resources. What means that they have all the answers that they need. Of course, sometimes we need training, we need to develop ourselves. But we have our own convictions, we have our own beliefs. And coaching doesn't want to change that. Wants that to lead your life. It's about making sure that you lead from your purpose, from your intentionality, from your authenticity. That's what coaching wants to take out. What happens multiple times? That you go to a leader and you begin to ask them questions. It's like, why are you asking me how I feel?
Yes, I know.
Why are you asking me what I want to do? What are you asking me all these shitty questions? Well, it's because my job is not to tell you what to do. They expect more a consultant or a mentor, and that creates a big blocker. Until they begin to realize that they don't know the answer, or that they know, and they are scared to open that door. And the day that they open one of these doors and discover that there is so much savviness and information there, is when their life changes drastically. That's the why coaching can be transformational. Because coaching wants you to explore exactly who you are. Each of us, we are amazing individuals, unique individuals. And each of us, we want to have a specific contribution to the world. Wouldn't it be amazing that all of us, we can be authentic and act in the world how we would like to act? That's coaching. And for me, that's an important point. Then, for the leaders that I have found in my career, multiple of them are blocked on this concept of give me an answer. I want an answer. Because, hey, I have hired you. I am hiring a coach. I am paying a lot of money to you. Why are you asking questions to me? You should not be asking me questions. I am paying you to ask me questions. That's something that happens a lot.
So it's a lack also of education in a way of understanding, and in a way, as well, being in a position of leadership and control, I can understand like being the devil's advocate of my own thinking here, because it took me a while before I would pay for a coach personally as well from my own pocket, and then later as well therapists, like any kind of help discovery is you pay for an outcome and a solution. So it's an odd idea that I have access to all the answers I have in me, so why am I going to pay someone to give me access to my own answer? I know everything, so there's also a bit of arrogance. I know what I need to know about myself. So there's also a lack of what I don't know, I don't know. I don't know if you've seen that.
Yeah, a lot. And let me use an example of a coaching exercise that I love. It's a coaching exercise that is called using the other as a mirror to yourself. Then you put two people, like where you and me we are right now, and imagine that we have the coach here. I will act as the coach, but imagine the coach is here, and as you, Sophie. What's the thing about Oscar that you don't like? And imagine that you would say, that he is pedantic, or he speaks too much, Then the coach would say, nice, thank you, stay with this concept. Oscar, get out of the picture. Sophie, what does tell you that you think that Oscar is pedantic about yourself? And then you begin to explore. How we see the world is how we see ourselves.
Yeah.
And we tend to like and dislike in others is what we tend to like and dislike over ourselves. That's why, we have all the answers. The problem is like we don't want to go there. We are the kid that said that no, that door, I don't want to go. Like that street, I don't want to go in that street.
Yeah.
It's forbidden. It's like, imagine that all of that is the range of emotions that we have in the world. How many times have we said, this emotion no, this emotion no? How many emotions of this range of emotions we don't want to explore? We cannot explore. Because we said that this hurts me, I don't want that. And as you said, since the beginning of our life until our current days. And then you have a coach that comes to you and tells you, no, you're feeling frustrated, stay with your frustration. You're like, what? I don't want to stay with that frustration. I have been avoiding that. But until the day that you are not with this frustration and you don't learn how to stay with the frustration, you cannot be your authentic self.
Yeah.
Because a part of you has to be frustrated and is frustrated. Then how can you talk with your frustrated part if you don't want to listen to it? It's impossible. It's impossible. Then the day that you begin to explore the whole range of emotions in its totality, it's when you become your authentic self.
It's a painful process because it's things you don't like to see and open. It's like I can relate to those doors, and some are really deep and sometimes heavy. That's why I understand the resistance. It's almost like self-preservation, you know, because again, some can go quite far in the past. And also the whole spectrum of emotions, as we will not get into it today, but again, maybe another topic, like the whole range of emotions, really not explored, I would say welcome in a workplace in general. Like, I think of, in my experience in the gaming industry, anger is okay. However, this is a weird one. Having an angry leader, it shows power. It shows, you know, it's
drive.
Yes, but I think it's very harmful. But sadness or fear, not okay to show. You know, how many are talking about what they're afraid of? Or I've worked also with many men, and I'm not sad. It doesn't make me sad. Are you sure? Like, how does that feel? And sadness is also not, it's almost a forbidden emotion as well at work, I've seen. Anger, no. Joy, of course, thankfully, some good ones.
I think it's really interesting what's happened with sadness. You know, like, I'm going to be a father, and I have many kids around me these days, and it's really, really fun when you go like walking with the parents and the kid falls and begins to cry. Don't cry, we say. You know, or something bad happens and the kid begins to cry. Like, don't be sad. You cannot be sad. Then we are already training ourselves, since we are kids, to not feel this emotion. We socialize ourselves with good and bad emotions. And there are not good and bad emotions. They are just emotions.
Yes.
And wouldn't it be cool that you go to work and say to your team, hey team, yesterday I had a terrible night, I had a big discussion with my wife, I am sad about that, I am at 20% of my capacity today, please help me to make the most from the day.
Wow.
Imagine that, and your team say, oh, this person has been vulnerable, has been open.
Yeah.
Let's help this person and let's help ourselves. And instead of that, what you do is, you are not working. You're not doing your job right. This presentation is terrible. Do it again. To another. Deadline? We are not in the deadline. We are super late. What are you doing to solve that? You're showing your anger and sadness in a really reactive way.
Yeah.
How different are both scenarios?
Yeah.
Which one is more impactful? Which one do you choose to be in?
Yeah.
It's a choice.
It's back as well to self-leadership and awareness of the emotions. But it's about, I believe, really rewriting the script or how you deal with those emotions, because we have been functioning on models we've seen and we think it's the only one, but we see the limit of it because, yeah, the depth as well is yourself the most. Like you know later when you're home, you feel quite bad about what you've done when you didn't act in the authentic way you wanted. But also people will remember, and that doubles, multiply the feeling of guilt, you know. So I hope as well with the help of coaching, we get to a more virtuous circle of how to deal with emotions.
And one thing there, because I think it's important what you said, is that people cannot expect to go to coaching and hope that coaching is going to change their life. We cannot do that. No, like please, if somebody has this expectation, don't go to a coach. Coaching is just going to change your life if you are willing to commit to change yourself. And that's really important because the change comes from you. Then you're not going to go to a coach and your plans are going to be solved from one day to another. It's going to be painful. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be fun. And it's going to be challenging. And you need to go with for your full self and be ready to go through all these emotions and commit to gain awareness and choice. If we don't do that, coaching is not going to have any impact.
And that's a good reminder and also closing for a discussion today, because it's really scratching the surface of coaching, because there's much more, of course, to discuss about. But I think here today the intention was awareness, which I hope we have achieved, just bringing a bit more information of what coaching is and what it is not. What do you say are the prerequisites really when you get into coaching? You mentioned a few, but for example, even like for you to decide to work with clients, what are the signals you not are looking for, but that give you confidence, like, okay, we'll make the most of our time together? It's also more a message for people who are considering coaching. In which mindset should they be when they start to explore coaching? Or maybe this is the moment where they're ready for it.
For me, it's the word that you said, readiness. Readiness is the key word. It's like when you realize that there is something about you that you are not controlling and is affecting you, and you don't know exactly how to deal with it, usually it's a nice moment to go to a coach. If you think that you have all the answers, it's not the right moment to go to a coach. When you begin to think, maybe I am missing something, it's the right moment to go to a coach. And something that I like a lot about coaching in general is like what we do is we do a chemistry session at the beginning of a coaching process. What's a chemistry session? Can be 30, 60 minutes where the coach meets the coachee and the coachee meets the coach. And they see if there is this connection, this relationship, this feeling that is going to help them explore and go where they want to go. I don't accept people that they come and tell me that they already know what to do. Or that they want me to give them the answers. Or that they are not ready to be committed to actually do what needs to be done. Because in coaching, and we always said that, large part of the transformation, the majority of it doesn't happen during the coaching session. Happen between the coaching sessions. Because it's when you are with yourself, acting in your real life, is when change happens. If you come to a coaching session, you say whatever, and then you go home and you don't do anything, that's not going to be impactful. Then be ready to commit. Commitment is a critical element. Commitment and desire to change.
Yeah. So I think this is touching on awareness, that you know something's not working, and then you're really highly motivated to do something about it as you come with that mindset. As we have the last minutes to close, one last thing I wanted to ask, for someone who doesn't have a coach today, but want just to know a little more about themselves and maybe try to answer for themselves, are they ready or not? Because, you know, when you start to contact a coach, you don't even know someone or it's a certain budget. What is a small baby step that you can begin with to know yourself better?
What I would say first is that if you're already asking about yourself these questions, that means that probably you are ready to go to a coaching process. Then I think it's an important thing. What I would say is like, something that I think it's really interesting in coaching that can help you when you're in this process is to explore what gives you joy. And there are 3 things that I think that people could do. Try to write down what we call their life purpose. What's the impact that they want to have in the world? And there is a simple sentence to make it happen. It's something like, I am the person whatever that wants to have this impact. Think about that, who you are and what impact you want to have in the world. Because that will already give you direction. A coach can help you to go much more in depth to explore it. But if you already have some questions and you want to see if you have this answer, try to write it down. Then also think about when you are really successful, when you are really sure about your decisions, when you are really making an impact, who you actually are. Which part of you is more present? This is what we call the leader within. The part of yourself that accepts yourself by who you are and has the authority to take the right decisions. And finally, the third element that I think is super important is values. What are the deepest beliefs and values that you have that shape and lead your life? If you have clear, more or less, what you want to achieve in your life, which impact you want to have, which is the part of you that really matters, and know what is important for you, and you know your deepest beliefs and values, through these three elements you can already deal with many complexities of the world and begin to change yourself.
I want to be mindful of the time for all of us today. I would have so many questions, but that will be out of this podcast. Thanks a lot, Oscar. It was
Thanks
a pleasure, and I felt as well I don't know if it was coaching, but I felt highly inspired by many things that resonated with me, and I'm sure we'll have quite some impact out of this room and conversation today. So thanks so much for having me here today.
Thanks to you. The pleasure is mine. I'm super happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you, Oscar.